Imagine a world where a mysterious illness sweeps across continents, wiping out nearly half the population. It doesn't discriminate between rich or poor, young or old. This isn't the plot of a disaster movie. It was a horrifying reality in the 14th century. This is the story of the Black Death, Europe's deadliest plague. Let's travel back to the year 1347. Europe is a bustling continent with trade routes connecting distant lands. Along these very routes, carried by merchant ships, an invisible and terrifying passenger arrived, a bacterium named Yersinia pestis. This tiny organism was the cause of the bubonic plague, a disease that would soon earn the infamous name, the Black Death. So how did it spread so effectively? The primary carriers were black rats, which were common on ships and in medieval cities. Fleas living on these rats would bite them, ingest the infected blood, and then jump to a human host, transmitting the disease with their next bite. In the crowded, unsanitary conditions of 14th century towns and cities, where people lived in close quarters with rats, the disease spread like wildfire. Once a person was infected, the symptoms were swift and brutal. It typically started with a fever, chills, and a feeling of extreme weakness. Then came the telltale sign, the buboes. These were painfully swollen lymph nodes, usually in the groin, armpits, or neck, that could grow to the size of an apple. The name bubonic plague actually comes from these buboes. As the disease progressed, the victim would suffer from severe pain, and dark patches on their skin would appear, caused by internal bleeding. This is what gave the plague its most terrifying name, the Black Death. For those who caught the bubonic form of the plague, the outlook was grim. Without modern medicine, the mortality rate was somewhere between 30 to 75%, and this was just one form of the disease. Sometimes the infection would spread to the lungs, causing pneumonic plague. This version was even more dangerous because it could be transmitted directly from person to person through airborne droplets when an infected individual coughed or sneezed. The pneumonic plague was almost always fatal, with a mortality rate of over 95%. A third, rarer form was septicemic plague, where the bacteria entered the bloodstream directly. This was the deadliest of all, with a mortality rate of virtually 100%, often killing the victim within a single day. Imagine the sheer terror. Your neighbor, perfectly healthy yesterday, is gone by morning. The person you bought bread from is now being carried away in a cart. Doctors, or what passed for them at the time, were helpless. They had no understanding of germs or bacteria. Their theories ranged from an imbalance of the body's humors to bad air or miasma. Some even believed it was a punishment from God. Their treatments were based on these incorrect assumptions. They tried bloodletting, lancing the buboes, and using all sorts of strange concoctions of herbs and flowers. People would carry bouquets of flowers or posies to ward off the bad smells they believed caused the disease. This is where the children's rhyme, "Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down," is thought to have originated. Ring around the rosy refers to the red, ring-like rash that sometimes appeared, the pocket full of posies to the flowers used to mask the smell of death, and the final line, well, that speaks for itself. The social fabric of Europe was torn apart. Fear and paranoia were rampant. People abandoned their families and friends, fleeing to the countryside in a desperate attempt to escape the sickness. Entire villages were deserted. The sheer number of deaths was overwhelming. Mass graves were dug to accommodate the endless stream of bodies. In the city of Florence, the writer Boccaccio described how the dead were piled up in the streets like layers of cheese in a lasagna. The scale of the devastation is hard to comprehend. It's estimated that the Black Death killed between 75 and 200 million people across Europe, North Africa, and Asia. In Europe alone, it's believed that anywhere from 30 to 60% of the entire population perished between 1347 and 1351. In some cities, the death toll was as high as 80%. It was a demographic catastrophe on a scale never seen before or since. But as with any great catastrophe, the Black Death brought about profound changes. The massive loss of life had some unexpected long-term consequences. With so many workers gone, the labor force became incredibly scarce. For the first time, peasants and laborers who survived found themselves in a position of power. They could demand higher wages and better working conditions. This shift fundamentally challenged the old feudal system, where lords had absolute power over their serfs. It accelerated the decline of serfdom and paved the way for a new, more modern economic structure. The plague also spurred innovation. The immense loss of life forced people to find new, more efficient ways of doing things. It led to the invention of labor-saving devices and advancements in agriculture. The psychological impact was immense, too. The constant presence of death changed how people viewed life, religion, and the world around them. Art from the period became more macabre, obsessed with themes of death and mortality. Think of the Danse Macabre, or Dance of Death, a popular artistic motif showing skeletons leading people from all walks of life, popes, kings, peasants, to their graves. It was a stark reminder that death is the great equalizer. Medical understanding, though slow to change, also received a jolt. The failure of medieval medicine to combat the plague led some to question traditional theories. This created an opening for more empirical, observation-based approaches to medicine, planting the seeds for the scientific revolution that would come centuries later. Universities and hospitals began to put more emphasis on anatomy and the direct study of the human body. The Black Death wasn't a one-time event. The plague returned in waves for centuries, though never with the same ferocity as the initial outbreak. It wasn't until the 19th century, with the discovery of the Yersinia pestis bacterium by Alexandra Yersin, that humanity finally understood its true enemy. The development of antibiotics in the 20th century finally gave us an effective weapon against it. Today, cases of the bubonic plague are rare and can be treated effectively if caught early. The story of the Black Death is a chilling reminder of how vulnerable humanity can be to the forces of nature. It shows how a microscopic organism can bring a continent to its knees, reshaping society in its wake. It's a tale of immense suffering and loss, but also of resilience and change. The world that emerged from the shadow of the plague was forever different, and its echoes can still be felt in our world today. It's a crucial chapter in our shared human history, a dark but important lesson from the past. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into history fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories that shaped our world. See you next time.